My brother, my dad took my sister, and I was left at an orphanage. Years later, when they saw what I built, their greed drove them right to my doorstep. They cried, begged, and played the victim, but they didn't know I had a trap waiting for them, and my revenge was ice cold. I was 8 years old when my parents divided our family like a deck of cards. They sat us down in the living room and announced they were getting a divorce. Neither of them wanted to compromise on their new independent lifestyles. My mom grabbed my older brother, Leo. "He's my rock," she said. My dad pulled my little sister, Sarah, onto his lap. She's daddy's girl. I sat on the carpet looking between them, waiting for someone to call my name. Nobody did. They literally drove me to a state facility. My mother wouldn't even look me in the eye as she signed the surrender paperwork. My dad handed me a $20 bill, patted my shoulder and said, "Be good, kid." Then they walked out the door and never looked back. The first night at the group home, I sat by the window waiting for their car to return. I waited for a week, then a month. Eventually, the waiting turned into a cold, hard knot in my chest. I spent the next 10 years bouncing between overcrowded foster homes. I learned very early that nobody was coming to save me. The warmth and love most kids get, I replaced it with a cold, singular obsession to survive. When I aged out of the system, I worked 3 jobs. I slept in a storage unit. I saved every penny and started a software company focused on financial security. I didn't care about making friends. I only cared about building an empire. By the time I was 29, I sold my second startup for $45 million. I made the cover of a major business magazine. That was my first mistake. Or maybe it was my greatest fate. 3 months later, my receptionist buzzed my office. "Sir, there are 2 people here claiming to be your parents. They're causing a scene." I told her to let them in. Walking through my double glass doors were the 2 people who threw me away like garbage. They looked older, stressed, and desperate. When they looked around my penthouse office, their eyes didn't see a son they had abandoned. They saw a walking ATM. They actually had the nerve to cry when they saw me. "My boy," my mother sobbed, rushing forward with her arms open. I took a step back. "Let's skip the reunion," I said, my voice completely dead. "Why are you here?" My dad tried to play the proud father. "We saw your success. We always knew you had it in you. We made terrible mistakes. We were young, broke, we panicked. You were 35, I replied flatly. "And you kept the 2 kids you liked." The ugly truth spilled out soon after. Leo had blown my mother's savings on a gambling addiction. Sarah was going through a messy divorce, and my dad was drowning in her legal fees and his own failing business. They were both on the verge of total bankruptcy and foreclosure. "We're family," my mom pleaded, crocodile tears streaming down her face. "Please, we have nowhere else to go. We'll lose our houses." Looking at them, a brilliant, terrifying calm washed over me. I didn't yell. I didn't throw them out. Instead, I smiled. "Okay," I said softly. "I'll help you." Their eyes lit up with pure, unadulterated greed. They thought I was a desperate kid, still hungry for their love. I had my legal team draft a massive debt consolidation agreement. I told them my holding company would buy out all of their debts, clear Leo's markers, and pay off Sarah's legal fees. I'd give them a clean slate. In exchange, they just had to transfer the titles of their homes and remaining assets into my corporate trust. "It's just collateral to satisfy my board," I lied smoothly. "You'll keep living there. Your debts will be gone." They were so desperate for the money, so blinded by the zeros on the page, they didn't even hire a lawyer to read it. They signed everything right there in my boardroom. They hugged me. My dad told me he loved me. I just nodded. 2 weeks later, their debts were completely paid off, and 3 days after that, they received their eviction notices. The paperwork they signed didn't list them as beneficiaries of the trust. It listed them as tenants at will, by transferring their deeds to clear their debt. They legally sold me their homes for pennies on the dollar. My phone rang nonstop that Monday. I finally picked up. "You're throwing us out on the street?" My dad screamed, his voice cracking with sheer panic. "We have nothing. Where are we supposed to go?" I leaned back in my leather chair and looked out over the city skyline. I felt absolutely nothing. "I don't know," I said calmly. "There's a group home on 4th Street. I'm sure they have an extra bed." I hung up, blocked their numbers, and went back to work.